welcome back to What a Barb, a Polin podcast. I'm Obs, and this week I'm joined by my lecky Beans and Veg as we leave behind the shiny treasures of Christmas and head back into the dusty vaults of filming leaks past. We're back with our new season 3 production recap, but before we get started, how is everyone doing? I think this is the first time we've all been on a call since Boxing Day. So it's been a while, kids.
I guess I'll start. I'm fine. I had something very traumatizing happen to me today.
You've only been up for like 3 hours. What's already traumatized you?
Well, I've been cleaning, so I'm going out later, and I couldn't find Biscuit anywhere.
No.
Actually, I'm going to be honest, I wasn't looking for her because I was busy doing other things. And I go into the laundry room to grab some cleaning stuff, and she's in the laundry room just sitting there meowing at me because she got trapped in the laundry room.
Oh, poor baby.
Yeah, so it's more traumatic for her than
Traumatic
me.
for her.
Yeah.
Not so much for you.
But updates, her tail has grown 4 inches. She's now 2.5 pounds.
She's only 2.5 pounds?
Yep.
Oh my god. Tiny.
She was teeny when you got her.
Yeah, she was like, oh god, less than a pound when I got her. She was like 0.8 or something. Very small.
Oh my god. Can't believe she's still so tiny.
And she has a white streak on her back that used to look like an arrow, but now it looks like a shooting star.
Oh.
That's really cute.
Oh, no, I'm pretty good.
Lecky, you're giving us a husky impression today, aren't you? I'm a big fan of the husky voice, I have to say.
I'm still recovering. I'm waiting for my voice to come back, so apologies.
My mom had the same thing that Lecky has, and she just stopped coughing, and she got sick back in December, so it's been nearly 2 months.
Yeah, not ideal.
Great. Thanks, Abby.
Yeah.
It's been horrible to watch because you sort of foresaw it happening as well.
Yeah, because your husband got ill.
And you knew it was going to happen, and then it happened.
Yeah. My husband went to see family for Christmas, and he was like, his one brother and our nieces had COVID, so he didn't go see them. But then his sister, he was like, oh, she has a cold, but I can't not go see her and my nieces. So I was like, okay, he's going to come back sick. And then he came back and he didn't seem sick, and then it all went downhill from there. I haven't used my inhaler so much in a long time, but it's fine. I'm getting better.
Vegetable, you're good. It's windy in the UK, isn't it? So if you can hear trees and branches and stuff, apologies.
Yeah, it is windy. But no updates on my part, unfortunately.
You good? You good? Wonderful.
How are you, Ovs?
I'm fine. I was just saying I need to find somewhere to live in the next 11 days, so I'll get around to that at some point.
Hopefully you find some place to live as soon as possible.
Who knows? Who knows? If I don't, I'll just go into a hostel for a while. Well, on that note, before we do jump into the rest of the episode, I believe, since it's been a while since we've been on, oh my god, look at Biscuit.
Oh,
She is still quite little though, isn't she?
Look at her shooting star.
she's all fluff.
Yeah.
Little Biscuit with a shooting star.
She's chewing me because she was playing. But yeah, this is her little comet on her back. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Bless her. Before we do jump into the rest of the episode, I believe that we have a few crumbs we wanted to sweep up first. We had a few weeks off from the pod. We've been mulling over 1 or 2 points. First up, I've been thinking a lot about the Christmas stills. I think we all have too. And one of the things I have not been able to get out of my head is Osterly Polin. We recently celebrated the 1 year anniversary of Enchanted Polin, and when we were looking over that video again and happily reminiscing, I can't help but be convinced that the Enchanted Colin from the This Morning leak is actually just Osterly Colin.
Yeah.
I think they've used the same outfit, and I don't think that Enchanted Polin actually match anymore, which is heartbreaking. I think we lost Enchanted Polin.
No, I agree. We did a deep dive and we looked at the cuts of the waistcoat, and it is the same outfit, I believe, down to the pocket watch. There's a slight different colour, but it must be the lighting because Nick's hair does look a very different colour as well. But I think I'm pretty convinced.
Yeah, so we think that the This Morning leak is just Penn and Colin are wearing costumes they wore in recent episodes. Separate episodes, not the same scene. So we don't think they were shooting a scene in those costumes together.
Just a shame because they matched, but
The more we get, the more we lose.
Speaking of Enchanted Polin, I was also looking over those photos and clips from the This Morning leak again, and I was reminded of Lady Danbury in those leaks. She's wearing actually a very like Grecian-inspired headpiece, by the way, that kind of matches the one that Simone is wearing from the original Ranger's House leaks from August. But what stood out to me is that she's wearing an off-the-shoulder dress. I mean, it is possible that we will be seeing some characters wearing off-the-shoulder dresses in this season. And some people have speculated that Blue Pen from Russ Park is wearing an off-the-shoulder dress. That may be an off-the-shoulder dress, and Pen may wear an off-the-shoulder dress at a different point in the season.
And Lecky, since we're speaking about Osterley Pollins and Enchanted Pollins and filming links past, I think we have another clarification we want to make about our initial Christmas stills theories, specifically in regards to what we were saying about the Osterley Pollin photo and our theories about Lord Debling.
In all the excitement of receiving the new photos, I think our initial theory was that Osterley Polin were maybe looking at Lord Debling arriving for the first time. We thought it was maybe because of Penn's slightly intrigued reaction that didn't really match Colin's in the same way. However, one of our listeners actually reminded us of something that we had mentioned in a past Crumbs episode that has kind of changed our opinion on that Christmas Day Osterley still that we received. So in our Block 1 Crumbs episode, What a Pirate, we were able to pinpoint the filming dates of Osterley to July 11th to July 18th. It was one of the very first things they filmed for season 3.
Yeah.
In that episode, we also mentioned an interesting Instagram story shared by Sam Phillips, who will be played by Lord Debling. On August 4th, he posted about his first fitting. Now, if we consider those dates, we've realized that it can't actually be Lord Debling that Penn and Colin are looking at in the Osterley still, because we don't believe that Sam Phillips had started filming yet.
Yeah.
In the What a Pirate episode, Ovs and I also shared our own version of what episode 2 would be like. We thought that Osterley would be the first ball of the episode where Penelope has received her physical glow up, but it turns out that she is still struggling with her confidence. And if Penn is still struggling with her confidence, that explains why her dance card is still empty at Osterley, as we can see in the Christmas Day still. We then thought that after Osterley, Penn and Colin would work on her confidence, and that at the end of the episode, there would be the moonlight ball we saw in the To Doom stills. I think that's still right, and I think that Lord Debling will appear in episode 2, but at the moonlight ball, not at Osterley, which confusingly also has that lunar theme. But Debling will meet Penn in episode 2 at the moonlight ball. Penn will finally feel more confident within herself at that time, and the two will hit it off and dance together, which will cause the intense reaction we then see from Colin in the To Doom moonlight still.
But shall we get on with the episode? Let's head over to see what the breaking crumbs of the week are. So, Lecky, what have you got for us this week?
Hello, Barbkin. What an exciting couple of weeks it has been. Like everyone else in the fandom, we've all been enjoying the new cast photos shared by Nick and Newts this week. Nicola, Luke Newton, Luke Thompson, and Claudia Jessie have all spent the week in New York City visiting Netflix headquarters and recording promo. And if you're like any of us, you lost your minds when Luke shared a photo of an awning in New York City with the address for Penn on it this week. Oh, for Penn, his pen.
Best promo ever.
We'll just be over here touching up our con makeup, wiping off tears.
Lecky, I sobbed mine completely off.
Also, hat tip to whoever decided to put a clip from the Have You Ever Visited a Farm L scene on the Jumbotron at a Knicks game that Newts and Claudia attended. Hilarious, though it would be more appropriate if the scene went, we were just heading off to take our balls out, a round of Pall Mall.
Oh, I love it.
In other news, Versha Sharma, the editor of Teen Vogue, interviewed Nick and Luke this week and asked fans on Twitter to submit questions. I, of course, could not resist the opportunity to ask about Polin's letters, but fans asked some really great questions, so I'm looking forward to seeing those be answered. Also, Versha teased that they may have filmed some videos too, so that is exciting.
Never give up on the letters, Leck. One day.
Yeah, one day. Every time they solicit fan questions, I ask about the letters. Please, someday. Speaking of New York, rumors abound that a billboard might be appearing in Times Square during New York Fashion Week, which is taking place from February 9th to 14th. We cannot stress enough that this is definitely a rumor and has not been confirmed in any way, but if this is true, could a trailer be on its way? Rest assured, we will be stocking up on face paint as we approach February. Clown responsibly, friends. Luke Newton has also had a busy January as he was in Paris earlier this month for the Ami show at Paris Fashion Week. Meanwhile, over at the Sundance Film Festival, Simone Ashley was interviewed by Screen Rant. When asked if fans would be left rioting in the streets over the over the upcoming Cantonese storyline, Simone said fans will be really happy, saying that she and Jonathan Bailey had a lot of fun exploring Kate and Anthony post-season 2, enjoying the blissful domestic life. She continued by saying, it's Luke Newton's and Nicola Coughlin's season, and if anything, I'm just really proud of them and the episodes for the world to see them tell the story. Oh. Lord Squad fans, get ready to welcome another member to the club. Thanks to Bibliophilic Spinster on Instagram, we now know that Lord Barnell will be joining the squad, most likely in episode 1. For those of you who are trying to keep track of all of our lords, here is the list we have so far.
Deep breath, Lex.
Lord Fife, Lord Cho, Lord Wilding, Lord Lieber, Lord Cutbill, Lord Barnell, Lord Basilio, Lord Samadani, and as yet unnamed lords played by Lucas Aurelio, Tom Byrne, and James Bradwell, and of course, Lord Debling. We officially have more than enough for a soccer team.
Okay, bring them in by all means.
Bridgerton's social media accounts recently shared a video by Kat Quinn in which she shared a few secrets about the Allure Bridal's wedding collaboration with Bridgerton. In the video, Kat said one of the dresses was inspired by Penelope, which definitely caught her attention. The dress in question has puffed sleeves and a scooped neckline, very similar to what we've seen from Window Pen and Enchanted Pen. Interestingly, the description on the website is also the only one that alludes to Lady Whistledown. There is one that starts off by saying Dearest Gentle Brides, but this one says Dearest Gentle Reader. One thing is certain, you are sure to embody the essence of romance in this absolute dream of a gown. Oh, could this be a tiny hint to Pen's wedding dress in season 3? Is it going to be as romantic as Nicola has so often said? We sure hope so. Though, having just read this quote back, the absolute dream of a gown, maybe we don't need the word dream in there.
You know what? I've had enough dreams. I've had enough fantasies to last me a lifetime.
Yeah.
But it's very Polin coded. There can be no denial.
Book fans, Julia Quinn has a few upcoming events you may be interested in. On February 10th, Julia will be joining the Jane Austen Society of North America Minnesota chapter for an online event titled Bridgerton Mania, a conversation with Julia Quinn. On February 20th, she'll be taking part in another online event with the Illinois Libraries. And fans in South America, you'll be delighted to hear that Julia will be attending in-person events in Peru, Chile, Uruguay, and Argentina in February and March. In cast news, Luke Thompson will be playing the role of Barone in the Royal Shakespeare Company's upcoming production of Love's Labour's Lost from the 11th of April to the 18th of May. We know many fans will be wondering how this might impact filming of season 4. Judging by Luke's involvement in this play, I'd guess they're starting up in the summer, but who knows? That being said, if you're a fan of Shakespeare and Bridgerton, you know where to go this spring. And if you really want to double down, don't forget that Ollie Higginson, our favorite footman John, will be appearing in Othello at the Globe. Are you going to go see either of these?
I don't know if I'm going to get to Stratford. I'm definitely going to go see Othello at the Globe.
Yep.
100%.
Yeah.
I'll see if I can convince Veg to go on a trip to the Midlands with me. What else you got for his lick?
It has also been announced that Charitha Chandran will be starring in the one-woman play Instructions for a Teenage Armageddon at the Garrick Theatre in London. The show will be running from the 17th of March to the 28th of April. And in more theatre news, Bessie Carter will be joining the National Theatre's production of Dear Octopus, running from the 7th of February to the 27th of March. So
we're all busy.
Lots of Bridgertons on the stage this year. In awards news, Queen Charlotte has been nominated for Outstanding Limited or Anthology Series at the 2024 GLAAD Media Awards. Shonda, Golda, Adjoa, India, Armatifio, and Arsema Thomas also picked up nominations at the 2024 NAACP Image Awards, so congratulations to all. Huge congratulations as well to Jonathan Bailey following his Best Supporting Actor win at the Critics' Choice Awards for his performance in Fellow Travelers. Jonathan's acceptance speech was really beautiful, funny, and moving, and we'll definitely link the full video in our show notes so you can take a look. Johnny also chatted with entertainment writer Baz Bamigboy at the BAFTA Tea Party earlier this month and revealed that he recently spent 2 days shooting for Bridgerton, which we believe is for season 3 promo. My god, I can't wait to actually see what they've all been doing this month. They've been so busy.
And I think he's just finished at Wicked.
Oh yeah, interesting. But moving on, Chris Bowers' documentary The Last Repair Shop has received an Oscar nomination for Best Documentary Short Film. The entire documentary is available on YouTube, Hulu, and Disney Plus, and we will share the links so you can go and watch it. And for a final few crumbs, the trailer for Nick's new film Seize Them has been released, and the release date has been confirmed as April 5th.
Day before Pen's birthday.
Okay, so I think this is coming out just in time for Polin Week. Very appropriate. And Lauren MacDonald, aka the cheese-loving Mr. Finch's new film Tummy Monster, will be premiering at the upcoming Glasgow Film Festival.
Gosh, they're a busy lot, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
Well, thank you so much for that, Let. As for now, let's head back to the rest of the episode. Now, thanks to all the festive shenanigans and a plethora of emergency episodes, it's been a little while since we last released one of our production episodes. If you remember, the last time we were doing one of our Crumbs episodes, we were discussing the filming of Block 2, so episodes 3 and episodes 4 of season 3. But Beans, what we'll be covering this week.
So, today we will be moving on to Block 3 of filming, so what we believe to be episodes 5 and 6 of season 3. We believe this block was filmed across November and December 2022. Just saying that. Oh my god. Woo!
Losing the will to live ever so slightly now in 2024.
So yeah, December 2022. leading all the way to the festive break in production. For reasons we will cover later, we are pretty sure this block was directed by Billy Woodruff. And Billy directed the 2006 dance movie Honey, as well as many other music videos, especially for R&B and hip-hop artists. He also directed for TV, including Empire, Fear of the Walking Dead, and Yellow Jackets.
Oh, did he?
Yes, he did.
Interesting.
Yep. So we are really excited to see the directing style he'll be bringing to Bridgerton. Also, congrats to Billy.
He's done a lot of dance and music based things, which will work out so well to see how he's going to do that with balls.
And it seems like in the past maybe 4 or 5 years, he's been trying to break more into like film and movie. Yeah, I'm excited because he seems excited for it. So
yes. And as always, just a disclaimer that these Crumbs episodes are pure speculation on our part, and we could be very wrong on anything we say, including dates, locations, scenes, and our interpretation of filming leaks. Our excavation site doubles as a circus tent though, so hop on in. Let's get crumbing, let's get clowning. So, in our most recent episode, What a Polin New Year, we were talking about how we felt about the mid-season split and where we thought part 1 would end in episode 4. So I think we all theorised that it would revolve around the Lady Whistledown reveal, and we talked about the possibility of the episode and thus the part ending on possibly Pen's rejection of Colin's hasty proposal, which is an inversion of what happens in the carriage scene in the books. If that is what happens, and again, this is purely our baseless speculation, then where do you think we're going to pick up in episode 5, and what story beats are you hoping we cover in the next 2 episodes? So again, episode 5 and episode 6. As a quick comparison to season 1 and season 2, in season 1 this part of the story covered Saphne's not too happy wedding, their very blissful honeymoon period, and then the development of the almost insurmountable conflict between the 2 characters. We also had the crescendo of Polin, the Marina subplot with Colin's engagement, Pen's decision to expose Marina, and then in season 2, episode 5 covered the fallout of Anthony's proposal to Edwina and the preparations for the wedding, while episode 6 covered the disaster of the wedding and the fallout from Anthony's feelings for one another finally becoming evident to those around them. So what are we hoping for this point in season 3? Have a couple of theories for you that we've been discussing. If episode 4 does end on the carriage scene, stop fighting. Is that a potato? No.
Did you say, is that a potato?
is that a potato?
I thought there was a potato on the floor.
The cats are fighting over a
potato.
Very Featherington of them.
Cats of my own heart.
I don't know what's going on.
My cat's favorite toy is an eyeball.
Not a real one.
Your cat's favourite toy is an eyeball.
An eyeball, a pill bottle, and a piece of paper from when I was in the hospital.
It's depressing.
She's a support pet. So we have the possibility that we've talked a lot about where Pen rejects Colin in the carriage scene, and Colin has to spend the next episode or so convincing her to accept, possibly ending in another less impulsive and more heartfelt proposal, with Pen finally accepting, maybe at the end of episode 5 or something. We have the potential of Pen accepting the proposal, happily or unhappily, but later breaking off the engagement when she realises that Colin is going to get dragged too far into Lady Whistledown blackmail, the bounty plot lines, and possibly Pen's reluctance to believe that he actually wants to marry her for the right reasons instead of honour and protection and such. Or we have the option that Pen might try to break off the engagement between them, but Colin refuses to let her and insists that it's the 2 of them against the world. We love a bit of Polin versus the world. Or maybe the possibility that Pen actually does accept the proposal, as she does in the books, and the 2 of them are happily together before other forces try and split them apart. How are we feeling about the beginning of episode 5? We've talked a lot about the possibility of a rejected proposal.
Yeah.
Does anybody believe in the possibility of a broken engagement?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
We hope not.
You know what? I think I'd like a broken engagement because it's more drama.
Oh, please. No.
Imagine the acting. Imagine Colin's face when she tries to break off the engagement. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, I mean, I guess I could see that, but more along the lines of, like, after maybe the blackmail plot, if that's in there, and she's like, oh, I might, like, you know, tell everybody who I am and to protect Colin.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I feel like if there is a broken engagement, that it's the Queen's search for Lady Whistledown and perhaps the blackmail plot that propels that.
Lucky, we were having a chat about this the other day,
Yeah.
and I was thinking about a broken engagement, and I was wondering if it might be a case where Pen tries to break the engagement, but Colin doesn't let her, because I think this will be a real moment of growth for him as a character as well, because if you have the almost broken engagement, it gives Pen the ability to have that speech and the ability to want to sacrifice her relationship with him and that moment.
That's true.
But if he tells her no and that it's the 2 of them no matter what, then, because I just think back to the first broken engagement that he had with Marina, he was so passive in that and he just let that happen. Whereas I think it would be a good moment of character development if he says, no, we're in this together.
Yeah, he refuses to let her.
Yeah, so she still has the ability to have that moment, but he rejects it, and it's them two against the world, and that's the theme that characterises the second part of the season.
You know, they could potentially have both, where she rejects his first proposal and then they eventually get together and there's some other drama. But I'm leaning towards a broken proposal because I feel like from the book, Colin's proposal is almost like an afterthought. You know what I mean? Like it just kind of happens. He's like, are we going to get married or not?
But we are very hopeful and honestly don't think that will be played out in the same way, just because Penelope's maybe a more strong character.
Yeah.
I think, but Pen was in a very different position, whereas I don't think show Pen would stand for that.
No.
Yeah, I also think that Pen thinks Colin proposed because Marina seduced him, and you know, I don't think in that moment she's going to believe that Colin loves her, so I don't think she may accept his proposal for that reason. And I also feel like Colin needs a second proposal that's more planned, kind of leaning into the big assuredly, fervently, loudly declaration, paying off that moment potentially.
Yeah, it's not even just that. Like you said, it is a second proposal that's needed. It's not even that Colin should do it later when he's sort of properly established that he's in love with her, but like they need a second go of it, I feel like, just to do better.
Something that he's put more thought into. Yeah. So she knows that it's not out of honor.
What's up?
Well, I have a little theory about episode 5 and 6.
Do you?
I do. How about the idea that episode 5 will be Polin drama as Pen refuses or resists Colin? We have a possible wedding in the shape of our favourite Fran. Is that how we're saying it? Fran,
yes.
Fran.
But we also accept the shrimp emoji because it sounds like prawn.
Prawn?
Yeah, Frohn. That is beans.
Fran.
Oh.
Yeah, episode 5, Polin drama, Pen refusing Colin, a Fran wedding with Polin tension at the wedding.
Or a Prudank wedding.
Okay, you read my mind. I said, where is the Prudank representation?
You will get your moment in court very shortly, I promise you. But so that sort of like deep tension between the two that builds up to the moment where Colin makes a genuine proposal again. Pen is more inclined to believe him, and the two get engaged at the end of episode 5. With episode 6 being Polin together and engaged, we get possible engagement night, the possible mirror scene, which we'll be turning to soon, before the dramatic episode 6 turn in the story, because there's always a big moment at the end of episode 6. So what could that dramatic turn be? Blackmail? Maybe from the Queen's plotline, Cressida's plotline?
Well, now we're more sure it's Cressida, right? Since we've seen the picture of that you spoke about.
Since the recent promo.
Crumbs. Yeah.
Yeah, so last time we were speculating that maybe Cressida could maybe take credit for Lady Whistledown at the end of episode 4 potentially. But I feel like, the big dramatic turn for episode 6 will probably be the blackmail plot.
Yeah.
Or maybe on top of the search for Lady Whistledown also ramping up at the same time.
All going on. So we're all on the same page, more or less. We'll have our dissenters later on, I'm sure.
Or, I love adding a little flourish, but I wonder if in episode 6, Pen could write as Lady Whistledown and say that Cressida isn't, and then the Queen and Cressida team up in order to find her.
Interesting.
Yeah, just add to the dramatics. I'm using Shonda brain, okay?
That's what we need. Because if episode 6 is the whole engagement focus, that would parallel the books quite well.
Yeah.
Right. Where we have things like the engagement night, but the dramatic turn of Lady Whistledown at that point in the story.
Yeah.
Well, as I say, we'll track this as we go through our crumbs, but for now, let's jump in our TARDIS, sorry to mix fandoms here, and travel back to the beginning of Block 3. We're off to the beginning of November 2022. Happy memories indeed. Let's get going. So, to quickly kick things off, on the 2nd of November, the personal hair and makeup teams for Nicola, Simone, and possibly other cast members were on set, and it was later confirmed that they were filming press for season 3. So, we now suspect they filmed bits of promo during blocks 2 and 3, as we'll see a little later on in the episode 2. We know that the cast have been busy recently filming promo for season 3, but we know that there is still tons to come out that was filmed at the same time they were filming the actual season, maybe using the sets too.
Costumes.
That's all to come. So, we can't wait to finally glimpse those. On the 2nd of November, also, Simone Ashley was interviewed by Vogue magazine. And in this interview, Simone talked about season 3, and she talked about how this was the story of Cantony during their honeymoon phase and beyond. She also said that they'd been recently filming a dance, and tonally it's so different, sweet, endearing and light compared to the heaviness of their story last season.
Happy for him.
I think, Beans, you were talking about this recently as well, about how the tone of the season really carries through from the main couple through to the other couples too.
Yeah.
And we know that this season is going to have that sweeter, lighter tone in certain parts. So that is going to kind of balance with the Cantonese storylines for this year as well as they move into their new phase.
That's a good point.
And then Simone continued to elaborate about Kate's role in season 3. And she said that even though Kate comes across as fierce, people like that are sometimes the softest on the inside. They develop that skin because they're vulnerable. You see her insecurities and fears. She's fucking nervous. And I think there's strength in admitting that. So again, talking about how in season 3, we're maybe going to see the vulnerable side of Kate being explored more, especially in their marriage.
Cantonese fans will probably be happy because that kind of also hints that they might tap into some of the book subjects they had to skip in season 2 about her past and also potentially Antony's fears.
Which is why I always say it was such a shame that we didn't get the season 1 characters in season 2.
Yeah, to carry that forward.
Yeah, and this is literally the first season that we get to see what they're going to add in when the characters from previous seasons are staying on into the next season. Because it's not like a true anthology series where every story is different. It's a world full of different stories.
Yeah, and they're going to continue to grow.
Exactly.
Yeah, and this is the thing, it's their happy endings they're not going to mess with, so it's not like some horrible conflict is going to come up between Kate and Anthony.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean the characters can't be challenged. So with Kate, you're going to see her step into this new role, and she's going to have challenges within that, but it's not going to be a challenge within her relationship. They're still going to be on solid ground.
Yeah.
And I cannot wait for that Cantonese dance. It sounds adorable.
Yeah, it's going to be sweet.
On the 8th of November, Bridgerton's social media pages shared a clip of the You Do Not Count scene with the caption, "Fret not, Miss Featherington, for we all have heard that the most epic love tales begin as friendships." Nick commented, "Ooh, how things are going to change." And as we've seen from the stills of episodes 1 and 2, it looks like they'll be changing rather swiftly indeed.
That old chestnut of a scene always pops up when we most need it.
Our favorite, yeah.
Oh, happy daisy. For now, it's time for our first known filming location of the block. Beans, where are you taking us?
All right. So we are back off to Basildon Park.
Basildon.
Fucking Jesus Christ. We should just compile all of the times I've said these things inaccurately. All right.
No, that's fine.
Try again.
We're back to Basildon. Yes?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
100%. Yeah, you're good.
We're back to Basildon Park. We know the location was closed to the public from the end of October through the 19th of November, which was later confirmed to be for filming. Basildon has been used in season 2 as the exterior of the Featherington estate. We also suspect production returned there in July of 2022 to film for block 1 of season 3, but we know that this set of closures at Basildon was for Bridgerton filming thanks to a post by director Billy Woodruff. Billy posted an Instagram story of him on location with the caption, "Directing Bridgerton. The date of this video coincides with the closure at Basildon."
Basildon.
Basil, like Fawlty Towers.
Yeah, Basil Fawlty.
The date of this video coincides with the closure at Basildon Park, confirming this was being used for Bridgerton, and this confirms that Billy is the director of Block 3.
We just appreciate from Billy the simplicity
Of directing Bridgerton.
Yeah, directing Bridgerton. Thank you, Billy.
Never get something that's like an answer. It's like straightforward answers, absolutely unheard of in this fandom.
Very appreciated. Thank you, Billy.
But Lecky, what was this little video?
A Twitter user brought this little video to our attention of Billy filming himself on set at Basildon Park in what appears to be a bedroom. But there was also some speculation that the room Billy filmed in could have been used for a steamy scene, as there is a bed in the background. From Beans' Crumbs, I knew that they were in Basildon Park at the time and was able to find the room that they shot in because there's a very distinctive, ornate design on the ceiling, along with this fireplace with kind of this oval mirror. It's too high to be the mirror, but there is a very distinctive mirror.
Stand down, mirror fans.
Yes. So Obs and I were also able to identify a painting in the background by flipping the image, as Billy's camera was shooting him from the front, so everything in the room was backwards. But funnily enough, this room turned out to be the green room at Basildon, which back in June, Obs speculated could be the room where the Moonlight Polin still was taken. So that is interesting. Could they be reusing this location for Polin? Possibly. The green and gold decor in the room is very Featherington-esque, and Basildon has been used for the Featherington house scenes before. before. That being said, the bed they brought into the room for the scene has red curtains, so that kind of clashes with the Featherington palette a little bit.
It clashes with the room, to be absolutely honest with you.
So maybe it's a Lady Danbury room, who knows?
Maybe.
Marcus Anderson and Violet.
I will say, though, in retrospect, on a tip from one of our favorite sub-members, it looks like they may have not actually used the bed in question in the scene. Because of the depth of the room, it seems like they may have added a faux bed.
Yeah.
Like, it's not long enough to be a proper bed, but we could be wrong.
It could also be related to Ben, too.
That's true.
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe a bit of Lady Tilly.
Yep.
But because of Obbs' theory that maybe Polin potentially used this room in an earlier scene,
Yeah.
it could be like a follow-up Polin scene. I don't know. This one kind of mystifies me.
Yeah.
I don't know, that's such a weird coincidence, though. I just randomly plucked that green room out of thin air for the Tudum thing, and for it to actually come back, but I don't think this is a Polin room.
No.
The red bed.
So now I'm completely thrown.
I will say that the red bed, it looks like it's inspired by another bed that's on the property that's actually like blocked off. It's like cordoned off. You can't actually touch the bed. It's probably an antique.
Yeah.
So I wonder if they just really liked it and created like a replica.
Yeah.
With like kind of the same features and color scheme. But you're right that the red isn't very Polin.
I also want to say, though, that color grading makes a big difference on film. So I think something that we've noticed from like the leaks to when they actually release the stills is that some of the outfits look a little bit different after they've been color graded. And so the room could match a little bit better.
Before we move on, I was just thinking like the red bed, it could be Marcus's bedroom, but they're just filming
A talking scene or something.
or even alone, like, you know, getting ready to go out or something like that.
Or having a conversation with Lady Danbury. Yeah.
Yes. Like, can't stop seeing Violet.
Yeah.
Beans.
Yeah.
This is filmed, as we were saying, at Basildon Park, which we've seen before as Featherington House, but it doesn't mean that just because they're returning there that it is used in the same capacity, right?
Right. So as a reminder to everyone, just because a location has previously been used for one set doesn't mean it will be used again in the same way. They've used same locations for different scenes.
And this is actually relevant to the next location production visited just a day or two after they were at Basildon. A story by Billy Woodruff confirmed filming was taking place over at Wilton House. Wilton has been used for many different scenes in the show, including the presentation hall, Lady Danbury's library, Cliveden Castle, and a garden party.
To carry on, in mid-November, we had a few more crumbs about some filming locations. Sadly, there were no leaks, but we do think we know where they might have gone to. Isn't that right, Beans?
So we believe they were filming at Loseley Park, a Tudor manor house in Surrey. We're not sure like what they were filming here, but the location has been used for other period dramas, including The Favourite and Rebecca.
And Obbs' all-time favorite TV show, Belgravia.
Don't mention that fucking TV show to me. We'll touch on Belgravia in our next block, I tell you now.
Filming also is believed to have taken place at RAF Halton, which has been used as both the Bridgerton and Featherington House interiors. We actually heard about the filming here because someone on Facebook posted about seeing a load of the cast out for dinner very close to the location. Notably, all the cast were members of the Bridgerton family, so we believe they were filming Bridgerton family scenes. The entrance hall of the Bridgerton house is filmed at RAF Halton, so possibly that's what they were up to while they were there.
And like I say, sadly, we didn't get any filming leaks from Loseley or from RAF Halton, but worry not, dear listeners, because if filming leaks are what you're after, then filming leaks you most certainly will get now, because, my word, in late November, we were hit by an absolute deluge of leaks, courtesy of our good old friend, the Old Royal Naval College. Veg, we're back home with you. Beans, what was going on?
Yeah, so production headed back to Greenwich. They last filmed at the Old Royal Naval College back in July of 2022. Every time I say 2022, I die a little inside.
We're still here.
The Naval College is used for market scenes, general townspeople scenes, and establishing shots of carriages driving through. Production pitched back up in Greenwich for a really solid week of filming, and they did a ton of different scenes that we'll get into.
Now, there was a lot going on, and we were blessed. We had a vegetable on the ground, a spy on the inside, our dearest veg, who was secretly messaging Beans on the side like an English spy in a World War II drama. Veg, welcome to the fold. This was your moment to shine. What was going on?
Come in, Beans. Come in, Beans.
Roger that.
Beans kept being like, I have someone who is nearby, and she's messaging me. And it was very secret, and we were like amazed that there was this figure. Your messages came in like Morse code. Like you'd send a screenshot and we'd be like bloop, 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 decoding it all.
They asked me who it was, and I was like, oh, her name is Veg's Bay. Like, they would message me and be like, has Miss Vegetable sent anything to you today?
Stop. No, I remember one of the posts that you did, like, summing up stuff, you put, like, that I'd helped, or, like, we credited me in some way.
Yeah.
And I was at that point too scared to, like, even have my username referenced in the post. I mean, cut to a year later, and I'm screaming into my phone voice notes app on Christmas Day when they released the picture. Anyway, let's get to the good stuff. And I'll caveat that at the time I was going through the old Royal Naval College, like, on a daily basis on the way to somewhere. So I'm not, it wasn't like I was hanging around waiting.
You weren't lingering.
No, I wasn't lingering. And also, anywhere I mentioned going in there, I had the right to be there. I had a pass to get into a particular building from, like, this thing that was happening at the time. But,
But Veg, this is very common at the old Royal Naval College, isn't it? They film tons. I think it's like one of the most filmed locations in the world.
Yeah, there's a lot there. So,
late November, what did you see?
So it happened over a couple of days, the 24th and 25th. And 24th, I started seeing them setting up stuff in the morning. I did see them unloading a carriage, which we later learned was the Queen's carriage, which we'll return to later. And also it looked like they were blacking out some of the windows by the chapel, which I actually went back this weekend and checked what it was. And it's just a cafe, like, next to the chapel, that's, I think, for students. But it seems like maybe that was where they were sort of hiding people.
Yeah.
So that was very interesting. But it was clearly a huge production. And as we'll see, it was a very busy week of filming in Greenwich. I also saw some horses and footmen, and it was funny seeing the footmen with their white wigs walking around, like, on their iPhones. It was very ahead of the time. But there were, like, several horses, so it's clear that there were going to be several carriages. They all did look the same, so maybe they were just swapping out horses when they got tired. But I think it was clear that there's sort of some kind of event that carriages were pulling up for. So I saw everything be set up, and then later that day I went for a run, and I could see that there were lights in a bit that wasn't sort of in the public area, and this is where I did have access to go in. So basically they'd blocked off some of the access, but I was able to go into this university building, into, like, the staircase, and look through the window that let out onto that square that you couldn't go into, but you could see it from the staircase. And oh boy, I saw a lot. Now, I didn't see Penelope and Colin.
They were very elusive, this block.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, but it was very exciting. Like, lots of students were coming past, and I was trying to act very nonchalant. Like, they were like, oh, is it something filming? And I was like, yeah, I think so. I'm not sure what it is. I think maybe Bridgerton. I'm a hot mess. But basically the square was the marketplace, and it may have been where, like, that setup. I didn't see it in block 1, but I was away that, but it might have been where the same setup as they'd taken the marketplace, Polin, Lord Whistledown. So that's exciting. But there's basically lots of market stalls around, and a fair amount of extras. No one I could particularly recognise, but it looked like there's potentially one of them a Mars. But what there was a group of men standing in the middle who were having a conversation, and they were all being a big focus of the scene. There was a camera right up by them, and there was also a boom mic, so it was clear that it wasn't just like a passing thing, that they were the focus of the scene. So there's a group of 4 people, 2 who looked like lords, and then there was a guy who, at the time, I thought maybe it would be John. We didn't know anything about it at the time, but because of a later scene, I think that may have been John. And then another guy who looked like maybe an older relation in a top hat. And so those 4 were talking in this first scene that I watched. They kept doing that same scene as is done, and that was very exciting, and I was sort of wondering who these 4 men were that were quite important. So then I sprinted up to Ranger's house to see if there was anything happening there, and there wasn't, and then sprinted back.
Up that hill.
Bear in mind, I was working that day.
The dedication to the cause.
So then I headed back, and they'd changed up for another scene, and this time it was sort of a tea sitting around on tables, women sitting around tables. And then I believe the man who I'd seen earlier, but could have been someone else walking up to the table. And now looking back, it was Fran who was sitting on the table. So basically, who may have been John approaching Fran. Thing is, in some of the pictures, it looks different to Victor Ali, the guy who walks up to Fran. I'm not sure.
Could it be Michael?
I think it could have been Michael because it does look like a different person. But I will say that the window was a bit warped.
Yeah.
The position. So I'm not convinced.
Hard to see.
Yeah, it is an old building.
And like, it's more likely that John would probably be walking towards Fran. But I don't know. I think it could have been Michael, and I'm excited to see the scene. And so as for Fran, that sighting, I believe it was her because there was a Bridgerton maid standing behind her with the typical clothes that they wear. Also, it just looked really like Hannah Dodd. And she was on a table with other young debutante-looking people with another table that was further away, looked to be older women like mamas. So that was what I saw.
So you sent all this through and we were eating up because this was the first sort of suggestion that John and Michael were going to be involved in this season. So thank you for breaking that to us all, Veg. And we will return back to more John Sterling sightings later in future episodes. But thanks to this tip-off from Veg, we were able to keep an eye out for this particular actor who was maybe in the earlier scene, which led us, with other Polin fans, to be able to piece together our suspicions that John Sterling will be played by Victor Ali. And this was a scene from episode 5 or 6 of a nice little Fran and Sterling boys scene. Lecky, did you see anybody else in these market scenes?
Very embarrassingly, we saw an extra who we suspected was Brimsley.
Always the sideburn comparisons that we have to make, isn't it?
Yes, more sideburn comparisons. And my favorite extra, we call him Crab Guy. There's this picture of this extra at the market. He has his like hands up almost as if he's like trying to show his muscles, but he kind of looks like he's making like crab hands. And hilariously at the time, this was considered a spoiler on the Polin subreddit. So we weren't allowed to post a picture of Crab Guy. So I instead once had to replace a comment with a picture of the Swedish chef with crab hands to demonstrate what I was talking about. We'll share this just for fun, but that's one of my favorite things we saw.
So we had the market scenes being filmed in the courtyard, but the rest of the Old Royal Naval College was closed off too. Lecky, what was happening over there?
Along with the courtyard filming with John and Francesca, there was also a photo of townspeople milling about near the columns on the exterior of the Old Royal Naval College. And because Bridgerton fans are experts at Where's Waldo, or Where's Wally, depending on where you're from, they immediately zeroed in on one male actor in the mix who looked suspiciously like Colin and was also dressed head to toe in purple.
You know what? This is once again one of the many, many instances of us not being able to recognise the main character of the show that we apparently care about so much. So it was this amazing shot that half of us were absolutely convinced beyond reason was Colin. First of all, Veg, how is the maybe Colin looking? Because this shook our little boots, didn't it?
Yes, a Willy Wonka, purple velvet Colin is wearing a very shockingly blurry, very dark purple suit, a top hat and sideburns that not only prompted much discussion and analysis, but also led many astray. And I just want to say, before we get into the analysis, that this picture freaks me out and I've never been able to see any human. Like, legit, this looks like a doll.
I think the lighting is very strange.
It just doesn't look real at all. It looks completely like a painted doll face. And I can't look at it. I'm freaking out.
And we were like, that's our boy.
Oh, man.
Well, half of us were very convinced it was Colin, including me. I made collages comparing the sideburns. Once again, sideburn analysis, top of our priorities. Yes. And we were there being like, wow, how has he gone from pirate to Willy Wonka?
Yeah.
To purple. And we were like, what does this say about his story? Lucky, was this Colin?
Tragically, purple velvet Colin turned out not to be Colin at all. Very embarrassing considering how much sideburn analysis the fandom had done at that time. And I believe Obs at one point had even stuck him on a cross with pictures of Blue Pen and Blurry Pen from Russ Park as a holy trinity of blurry set leaks. Before we realized the truth, we will also share this really sad meme.
I think another video came out later from a different angle and it just definitely wasn't him. Yeah. So, you've got to have some clowning to pass the time. So we have our market scenes, we have our purple velvet. Beans, what else was going on?
While they were up in Greenwich, they also used a new location at the Old Royal Naval College, the Chapel of St. Peter. And Sankt Paul, the chapel, was closed for filming on the 24th and 25th of November.
Unfortunately for us, we had, once again, a veg on hand. Veg, what did you see from the ground?
Oh, so very early morning this was, and it was very cold. But November 25th morning looked like there was a group of women wearing kind of bridesmaid style dresses.
Oh, yeah.
Now, what has been confusing since is that this wasn't in the wedding block. So, I don't know, I can't really work it out, but definitely open to opinions here. But basically, the dresses were long, floaty material. Good chunk of them are green, which freaked me out. But there were also some pink and purple as well. And they were all very floaty, taffeta, netting, Midsummer Night's Dream-esque, quite bridesmaidsy. And another clue that it was relevant is that they had quite a fair amount of security. You couldn't walk through the point. They were sending people around another way, and it was outside the chapel. It was close to the market area they've been filming. So, yeah, very exciting.
So these leaks came out, and immediately a ton of people, almost everyone, was suspecting that it was a wedding that was being filmed because it was using the chapel. There were many characters coming outside. Again, as you say, it felt very bridesmaidy. So we were all freaking out thinking, is this a Polin wedding? Because surely that is what was being filmed.
Well, not everybody thought that. Oops. If you were if you were not in the fandom at the time, some fans jumped to the conclusion that this was a trial for Penn, mistaking the priests on set for judges. Luckily, we do not think Penn is put on trial, at least not at this point in the story. I'm pretty sure they're saving the execution for the epilogue.
Lucky.
But we're pretty confident this is a wedding because if you go back and watch the wedding from season 2, you'll notice that there are also multiple priests present during the ceremony, and the extras were also described by fans as being beautifully attired, kind of tying in what Veg said about the bridesmaid style dresses.
And there were choir boys. The floofy, fluffy choir boys.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Ain't no choir boy's gonna be there singing for an execution.
It was a learning experience for them, Beans.
Yeah.
Maybe they were singing choral hymns as Penn's head was being chopped off.
Oh, she's dead.
Ding
that
dong,
bitch is dead.
witch is dead.
Penn is dead.
It suddenly just becomes the opening of Wicked.
Yeah.
With Eloise as Glinda.
No one mourns the wicked.
A little tribute for Johnny Bailey.
Yeah.
He just doubled on set. He was like, I've got this.
Jack Murphy was also seen on set, which led some to suspect that a ball was maybe being filmed in the chapel as well.
A ball at the execution? My, we are busy.
A ball at the execution. But two things about this. Both Veg and Ovs have been to this chapel a number of times, and most of the pews and fixtures within the chapel are firmly placed and cannot be moved. So they wouldn't clear this out for a ball. And second thing to note is that as well as doing dance choreography, Jack Murphy is also the movement director for Bridgerton. This means that he is also in charge of choreographing scenes where maybe an actor has to move with the camera and it has to look natural. Or there is a scene where there are many moving parts, like the market scene. He helps with those movements to make them seem more fluid and realistic. So, if he is on set, that doesn't always mean that there's going to be a ball. He could just, in fact, be there to help with all of the moving parts in a particularly complicated scene.
Such as a wedding.
Such as a wedding.
Maybe directing the movement for the wedding entrance.
Yes. A little ball change with the camera.
Tap dancing down the aisle to her execution.
Tippity tap, I'm about to die.
Go out in style. So as well as our lovely Veg on the ground, there were other fans nearby who were also looking out for filming because Greenwich is very accessible if you want to watch filming for stuff like this. And we had a whole bunch of cast that we're seeing on this particular day. They were seen coming in and out the chapel. So we had, I'm going to go by character names if that's easier, if that's okay. We had the actors for Dankworth, Violet, Penelope, Colin, Benedict, Francesca, Eloise, Lady Danbury, Portia, Prudence, Philippa, Lord Cheese, aka our darling Miss Finch, Emma Mar of the Ton, Marcus Anderson, and like you say, we had choir boys, we had clergymen, all possible judges chop Penn's head off, and a lot of tons of people. Now, I think we got photos of Adwa Ando and Ruth Gemmell coming onto the set, but Veg, you said that the security had been very strict, and I remember another fan who was on set said they weren't allowed to take photos of the main cast leaving. So it was definitely something big going on that they didn't want people to see.
Yeah.
So what do we think was being filmed? Don't think it was the trial. We think that there was a wedding being filmed here. And bear in mind, this was before Block 4, so this was before the other wedding took place.
Yes.
As far as we knew, this was the big wedding. So whose wedding is this? Now, our most likely candidates, obviously at the time we thought Polin, but for reasons that we'll get into in our next Crumbs episode, we pretty much think the Polin wedding is going to be in block 4 in either episode 7 or episode 8. So if we're ruling Polin out as a potential, then I think that leaves the most likely candidates as a Fran wedding, or Beans, you've got your moment of justice here, my love.
Prudink.
Good old Prudink wedding. What do we think?
Is a Prudink wedding. Okay, before we get into theories, I will say this is just a little fun production thing. I believe this was the beginning of the ADs carrying umbrellas to cover the actors. When they actually finished filming, all of the ADs ended up getting shirts of like them holding umbrellas and dancing around.
Yeah.
So I believe that was the start, because I don't think they did it for season 2, but they definitely did it for this season. They covered up all them actors with umbrellas.
They really didn't want them to be seen, and that carried through to block 4 as well. So we are going to have to work it out a different way if we can't do it from on-set pictures. So let's go by logic. Beans, I'm so sorry to do this to you. I do love you, but I just can't see it being a Prudink wedding, and here's why. I'm sorry, babe, but neither of them are titled.
Yeah.
We know he's just Harry Dankworth. He's not a lord or anything. So isn't it more likely that if they get married, which we hope for, I'm not taking that away from you, but wouldn't they have more like a living room wedding like the Finches had? Why would Prudence and Dankworth have a huge wedding on this scale?
Because they're hot.
I'm not taking that away from you.
I will say that there was a fan on Twitter. I spoke with her and she saw Bessie and James together on set. They were at least interacting together on set. I don't know if they were filming, but they were together, which kind of solidified our idea that Prudink is a thing.
So maybe that says that they're together by this episode.
Yeah.
Beans, we're not taking away that they're going to get married. It's just the logistics, babe, we're talking about.
I know.
Because, like, if the non-titled get quite a wedding, such as what we saw with the Finches. Now, I know what you're going to say. Neither Penn or Colin are titled either. So you might be like, well, surely, why would they also have a huge wedding?
But they're the leads.
Yeah.
Lady Whistledown.
The Bridgertons are a hugely more prestigious family, and Penn is probably going to have that more prominent role in society, and we're suspecting maybe the Queen is going to pay attention to her.
Yeah.
Building up to a bigger wedding.
As for why this isn't a Polin wedding, just very quickly, I mean, it's possible it could be a Polin wedding. It could be a Polin wedding that isn't carried to fruition, but we didn't see all of the redheaded extras that we saw at the Polin wedding in Block 4. Yeah.
Yeah, so many redheads.
The Featheringtons hadn't turned out for this one. So just that's a point. And also there were like very distinctive blue and yellow flowers at the second wedding, which we will get into more in Block 4.
There's a lot of reasons why we think the second wedding is the proper Polin wedding.
Yes.
If it might not be a Polin wedding and it isn't a Prudink wedding, then is the most likely candidate Fran and John? Because if you think about it, he is an earl and she's from the Bridgertons, probably the diamond of the season, lest we forget. So would it make sense for these two to have this kind of level of wedding?
Yeah.
Saying all of that, Nick and Newts were not seen in costume here, which doesn't bother me too much because I think that they wanted to hide their outfits regardless of what they were filming at the time. But what I don't get is that Fran was seen in costume and it wasn't mentioned as a wedding dress.
Don't think it was.
But I still think this is a Fran wedding, and I suspect that maybe they had her change out of her costume to maybe avoid spoilers. That's the only kind of logical explanation I could think of. And then the only other alternative to that is that maybe it's an interrupted wedding or Penn jilts Colin or something like that, especially because fans spotted some paper boys filming outside of the chapel. So maybe there's something about Lady Whistledown being released at the time, but that could be for, you know, some other point in those two episodes.
Well, I will say Daphne's dress wasn't very over the top either, though. Like, it wasn't like, you wouldn't necessarily look at it and be like, wedding dress. So I think it's very, like, the Bridgertons have a more subtle, less in your face.
Yeah, especially Fran.
And Fran's quite an understated character.
Yeah, Fran is.
So I feel like it probably was a little bit more simple.
Understated.
Understated, yes.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't put it past them to put her in a decoy dress.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was
too.
thinking.
They did that with Nicola in like Block 4 for her wedding dress. They like had her go in the church in regular clothes, which we'll talk about when I get to Block 4.
Yeah, they had a change out.
Yeah, they covered her up.
Yep.
So, because a huge plot point like Fran getting married, they'd want to hide. And then they always wanted to hide Penn and Colin's costuming, regardless of the context of the scene, except for Bath. So, Lecky, you're on board the Fran wedding.
Yeah.
Guys, are you on board with it being a Fran wedding? Have we converted
Yeah,
you?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Are we thinking that this could come maybe in episode 5 or so? So
Yeah, I think so.
maybe Fran and John have quite a straightforward romance and they get together, because we want their romance to be very beautiful and idyllic so that it hurts so much more.
Yeah. The backdrop of like John and Fran just like so in love and like everything's working out.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, Colin is, because then the Bridgertons are going to be distracted by that, right? Like Violet's not going to be paying attention to Colin and everything, and Colin's going to be losing his damn mind. Now, there were some theories like maybe they would have a moment of tension at the wedding, him and Penn would. I feel like that would be copying season 2 a little bit too much, you know, because they have that. That wedding scene, like maybe they'll look at each other, but I don't think it's going to be like a fantasy scene like Antony had at the wedding. But maybe there'll be some like longing glances at each other, you know?
That's what Obs wants.
Well, Lecky, you know this very well, because I think that this contextually, if we like go on our theory of what the episode could be, if Penn has rejected him and he's trying to spend the episode convincing her to be with him and she's resisting and he's devastated and heartbroken. Like you say, Beans, if you have this magical, perfect wedding story of Fran and John playing out, that hurts so much more when you see the broken side of him not being able to convince Penn. And I think it would be a lovely break. It would be a lovely way to break through to Penn if they have this moment at the wedding where it's like a fantasy scene where they are just there for Fran and John and then they look at each other. It's such like a cliche, but like I eat that shit up, you know? They look at each other and it's that moment of it should be us up there.
I think not only that, but for Penn and Colin, a moment where they're like, I want this to be us. Yeah. And maybe this could also propel Colin to continue pursuing Penn and try to convince her to change her mind.
Yeah. And that leads them to, because Colin loves a wedding and this might break through for both of them. Also, just want to say that if this is a Fran wedding, one, a brilliant opportunity to have Michael tension too, as Francesca marries John.
Oh, yeah. And I was also just thinking about, again, going back to how it's going to apply to everybody. It could be a moment of tension for so many characters. Yes. Lady Tilly and Ben, if that's a thing. Marcus Anderson and Violet, if that's a thing. Penn and Colin. Like, it could be so, like...
I was just imagining Lady Danbury seated in between, like, Marcus and Violet or something.
And Marcus looks over. And Violet's like trying not to look back at him, you know, she's being her little Violet self.
And Lady Danbury's just pissed off, but
Meanwhile, Kate and Antony are just like, oh, we're so happy we're married, we're Kate and Antony, you know?
Colin's dying in a corner. There you go, you could have some Penelope's tension, because the wedding is an environment where it's forcing everyone to interact, and we could have a Penelope's moment where we check in and see where their tension is in their story.
I was just thinking, another possibility is that John and Fran may not have like an easy journey to their engagement and their wedding, and that maybe something comes up where they have to fight for their relationship a little bit. Because if we continue with our theory that Colin finds out that Penn is Lady Whistledown in episode 4, then it's likely that a lot of episode 5 could be Colin trying to come to terms with not only his love for Penn and desire to be with her, but kind of working through his feelings about her secret. It's likely to continue to be a point of contention between Penn and Colin. Maybe Colin is still struggling to cope with the revelation. Maybe that adds to Penn's reluctance to be with him. But if we have this parallel of the Fran wedding and maybe things haven't been perfectly smooth for them either, it could give way to like a really nice sibling moment between Fran and Colin potentially, where maybe Fran helps guide him through that difficulty a little and provides him with clarity about how he feels, kind of conveying that it's not always easy to be with the one you love, but you can overcome whatever is in your path. A moment of reflection for Fran and a moment of guidance or encouragement for Colin.
Yeah.
Now, Lecky, you did just mention something about some paper boys being seen around the chapel. What's going on?
Yes, so paper boys were also spotted in the filming by fans, which suggests that there could be like a Lady Whistledown angle. That being said, I was thinking about this, and I also think it's possible that they could have been filming like general shots of paper boys handing out papers at the Old Royal Naval College, not necessarily during the wedding. And I think it's possible that they could maybe intercut this with a montage of footmen handing out flyers announcing the Queen's reward for Lady Whistledown's capture, which is our next topic for discussion.
If all that wasn't enough, the Old Royal Naval College was not done with this yet, because there was more filming spotted. These are some of my favourite filming leaks. It's truly bewildering, mysterious, an enigma wrapped in the Hound of Baskervilles. So we had a lot of townspeople knocking about. We had also horrific weather. Do you remember this gale force winds? Watch for this scene in the actual show and you will see how the poor extras are fighting for their lives to act like it's a beautiful day in Mayfair. I cannot wait.
Oh, yeah.
But this was no ordinary ton scene. Lecky, what on earth was going on?
So we received some really great footage from this time from fans and passersby. There were a ton of carriages, which always makes us excited. But the one video that excited us most involves a camera crew filming what looks like Colin's carriage driving down the road. His carriage ends up parking in front of what looks like Queen Charlotte's carriage. And on the steps behind the carriages, we can see townspeople milling about and a ton of royal footmen. But what's really intriguing is that we see the camera crew filming Colin's carriage coming to a brief stop, and a Bridgerton footman opens the door of the carriage for a royal footman who then peers inside.
This was so interesting because it kind of looked like the royal footmen were stopping it in its tracks. And our original interpretation as a fandom, I think most people thought that the footmen were searching inside looking for someone. And so everyone was like, oh my God, are they searching for Penelope? Is Penelope in hiding? Does the Queen know she's Lady Whistledown? Are they searching the carriages? Have they stopped Collins because they suspect she's with him? Which, I mean, has so many implications. But do we still think that's what's going on?
I don't. That's what my original idea was. But upon thinking about this a bit more and discussing it with Obs, I think something else might be going on here. Because from the leaks, we don't see them searching any other carriages. And I find it hard to imagine them searching all carriages if they don't know who they are looking for. Furthermore, this seems like too early in the season for them to know that Pen is Lady Whistledown. And to revisit the royal footmen I mentioned on the steps, at least one of them is pictured handing out a flyer to a woman who takes it from him. So I'm thinking that maybe the royal footmen are handing out flyers about the Queen's search for Lady Whistledown and or any reward that might be offered, and that Colin's carriage is stopped and he might be handed a flyer that he might be sitting inside the carriage. And I feel like this would be really dramatic, especially if Colin knows that Pen is Lady Whistledown at that point and has potentially rejected his proposal and subsequently his protection. Also, just to mention, the curtains on Colin's carriage were closed, so we couldn't see who was inside, which kind of added to the mystery.
I bet it was just like production or something sitting in the back, honestly.
Probably nobody in there, and then they filmed his scene like in the studio or something like that is probably what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that maybe makes more sense what you're saying about, because like you say, that would work very well at that moment if he's already in a huge panic about Pen not agreeing to be with him, and then there's this threat of the Queen looking for her, and it makes it even more pressing to him. So I think you might have cracked it. It's maybe not as exciting as like them hunting down Pen, but like you say, it just doesn't really fit the story at that time.
Yeah, it's too early.
So I think I'm with you. Were there any other carriages spotted, seeing as though we're on the topic?
Well, as I said, we saw quite a few of them. There were so many, guys. There were so many carriages. But someone on social media managed to snap a photo of what looks like an actress that could be a stand-in riding in what looks like Colin's carriage. So it's definitely a Bridgerton carriage, as the footmen were wearing the Bridgerton livery again. So this suggests that Colin may be riding with a female family member or perhaps Pen at some point in episode 5 or 6. The third and final carriage we'd like to draw attention to is a yellow carriage that was spotted on set during this time. I believe we first spotted this carriage back at Austerley. The crest on the side has mystified us for some time, as it kind of looks like duck feet. But in retrospect, I was thinking about it and I thought this could potentially be Dankworth's carriage, because as we know, Dublin isn't present at Austerley where we saw that first yellow carriage.
So this can't be his carriage.
Yeah.
Yes. So we think that maybe the it's not actually duck feet, but it looks like duck feet. I think maybe this yellow carriage could potentially be Dankworth's, because we think he's involved that early in the season.
And if his colour scheme is like a citrus yellow.
Yellow.
True.
Yes, how cute.
Love.
It's a fooding wedding.
Love it.
Yeah, he's like slipping right in with the family colours.
I have a feeling I'm gonna fucking love Dankworth.
I think everybody does.
I already love James Foon.
Yeah.
I think he is so sweet. I feel like I'm just gonna love him so much.
Yeah, same. Oh, also, it's worth mentioning that other carriages were seen around set at this time, including the black Bridgerton carriage that's notably used by Antony, and the green Featherington carriage. So they could have been filming specific scenes or maybe establishing shots of carriages riding through the Ton.
So I think, Lecky, you've put forward a good case that we can then maybe extrapolate that in episodes 5 and 6, the Queen is seriously ramping up her search for Lady Whistledown.
Yeah.
Maybe she's taking this really far, because you know what she's like, she gets really into the game of it and maybe goes a little bit too far by, you know, she's handing out papers to the townspeople, like flyers with the bounty, and stopping carriages to spread the news. Then that suggests that is really ramping up, which is going to heighten the pressure on Polin and their relationship. And this might run, which we'll touch on in a minute, alongside the blackmail plot. So keep that in mind. But But to lighten the mood a little bit, to alleviate from all the stress of blackmail and Carriage has been stopped, just to quickly mention a couple of social media posts that were made. On the 26th of November, they posted a debutante clip of our lovely Pen from season 2, episode 4, with a caption, "Something tells me Miss Featherington's upcoming 3rd social season will be her most successful yet." And I also posted on Twitter a lovely photo, speaking of Carriages, of behind the scenes of Luke Newton in the carriage from, again, 204, with a caption, "A fine day for a carriage ride, is it not, Mr. Bridgerton?" And then on the 28th of November, Hannah Dodd was interviewed by the Italian Rev. And we talked about John and Fran a lot in this episode, and Hannah Dodd was interviewed where she shared her thoughts on the character. She talked about how good it was to have a character who was from a book series because it gave her so much more material to come into. And she talked about how a lot of her preparation came from the books. And when it came to the show, she talked about Francesca playing the piano. So Hannah Dodd went into piano lessons, they had etiquette lessons and dialect lessons. And this ties back into the stills from Christmas, where we suspected that the family picture is them watching Fran calmly playing the piano before her presentation.
Yes.
So commitment to the cause. And Hannah Dodd also talked more about Francesca's character, saying that she's an introvert, and without giving too much away, the other siblings are really happy in big environments, and they thrive in big environments and know who they are and feed off each other. But whilst Fran has all of that, she prefers her one-on-ones, she prefers her small groups, and she really thinks and spends a lot of time with her thoughts. So where the others are happy to banter and compete with each other, Fran is happy to observe. She doesn't feel the need to compete for attention. Beans, I think this ties in with what we were saying earlier about Francesca, and how at this point in the story, that sort of one-on-one preference that she has with her siblings might come into a story beat with her and Colin. As he's going through this really difficult moment, as her fairy tale is playing out perfectly, they can have this moment of connection where she maybe gives him a bit of insight or comfort.
Yeah.
But then, are we ready for another mystery?
Yes.
Because I swear to God, this block was full of them. Also, on the 28th of November, Nicola released a video, and it was actually her raising funds for the charity that she supports. We'll include a link to this in our show notes if you'd also like to go and support it. Nicola has done a lot of fundraisers for this in the past, so it's an Irish Children's Hospice, Laura Lynn. So Nicola was raffling off a bag that had been signed by the cast, and she made this video with cast members on set encouraging people to go and join in the raffle. And do you remember this video? It was completely black and white, and she didn't show any of the cast members because they were all in costume, but we had the voices of everyone chipping in as they were encouraging people to donate, and it was very revealing. Beans, first of all, where do we think this video was filmed? Because even though it was looking down, we still figured it out.
Yeah, so the filming was believed to have been on set at Uxbridge. The cast were standing in the Featherington entrance hall, which was embarrassingly, we identified by the tiles on the floor. So
not our finest moment.
Yep.
In this video, we had Nicola, we had Adjua, Jonathan Bailey, Luke Newton, all the cast that you'd expect to maybe find hanging around the Featherington residence. But Lecky, who else was in this video, and who else was therefore on set with the Bridgerton family and with Lady Danbury?
It was Jess Madsen, who plays Cressida. Very unusual.
My. Now this set us all spiralling, because why on earth was Cressida Cowper on set at the Featheringtons?
Right.
They were standing in the hallway, right? But we don't think they were actually filming there. It looked like that's where like the cast were waiting. Do you know what set is adjacent to the hallway?
On Inside Bridgerton, there is a model of the Featherington house. And on the left, there's the study and there's a hallway. And on the right, there's just a door, which to me makes me think that there is either nothing there or it connects to another set. So like either a Bridgerton set, Bridgerton family set, or some other like a faux exterior or something like that. So we don't know what's on the right. Like I feel like we can speculate that it's either like maybe a Featherington house scene or it could be a Bridgerton scene. It could be something else, but I think those are the two likely candidates, that Cressida is there filming a scene with them on one of those sets.
In the show, in the hallway, when Pen goes out to talk to Colin in season 1, there was a drawing room and the dining room, and they were both on the left-hand side. I don't know if they're connected, but yeah.
Beans, a little theory then at this point in the story, because if we're speculating, again, we've literally made this up out of thin air, if we're speculating that they're going to get engaged properly by maybe the end of episode 5 or episode 6, could this be, you've wanted this for a very long time, could this be the Featherington Bridgerton engagement dinner part 2?
Maybe.
Oh, please, God.
But with Cressida there either crashing it, or maybe she's just invited herself somehow as Eloise's +1.
I was just thinking that, because I was thinking Cressida's going to have to confront Pen because she's going to know. And so I would say if this is after Fran's wedding, everything's filmed out of order, so this could be completely wrong. If this was them having that dinner, oh my God, having that dinner, and then Cressida is like, I need to talk to Penelope Featherington, and then Eloise, like, perks up and she looks at Colin and she looks out, you know? And Colin's like, oh, something's going on here. Well, you know, whatever. She could threaten her then. And then, like, that has the fallout of her breaking up the proposal.
It's interesting that Lady Danbury is also there, so you have to think of
Yeah.
why would she also be there? Why would she also be present with the Bridgertons or the Featheringtons? And maybe an engagement dinner could potentially be something.
Well, maybe if they do go down the line of Lady Danbury being close with Pen.
Potentially.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if this could be the dramatic end of episode 6.
Maybe.
Because there's always something that kind of like big drops, right? That's like setting up a major conflict between the main two. Could it be that this is the engagement dinner?
Yeah.
Or just the dinner at the Featheringtons, and Cressida ends up there and either threatens Pen privately, or could she even drop the bombshell to everyone in the room? Because if you imagine, like, it's only the senior Bridgertons that are gonna be at the dinner, right?
I don't think she's going to drop the bombshell to the room. I think she's going to try to torture Pen.
I feel like Colin and Pen will kind of need to later unite with the Bridgerton family or get some support from Antony or kind of clue them in later on. But I feel like it'll probably be the one-on-one type thing first.
Right.
Especially because there's that conflict between Pen and Cressida from episode 1. You know, I feel like they need to carry that forward and have that moment alone with the two of them.
And Colin's always been kind of caught between the two a little bit, like from Colin refusing to dance with Cressida and then him, you know, leaving Cressida on the dance floor and going to Pen straight away. Yeah. It's always been that kind of tension. And it would be so dramatic if she takes Pen off to the side, privately threatens her, and Pen has to return and sit and act like everything's fine. And instead everything has come crashing down. This is purely because we heard Jess Mudson's voice on a video. But Beans, we were saying in our weekly crumb that we really think this could be the role that Cressida's going to have in season 3, and maybe the way she gets invited to this dinner or turns up to this dinner is if she has an existing friendship with Eloise. Or maybe she crashes it in some way.
Or maybe she shows up after.
I think she's just going to show up.
Yeah, maybe it makes a dramatic entrance. And she's like, I want to congratulate you privately.
Yes, that's so good. Yeah, I think that Cressida's going to announce that she's Lady Whistledown, and that's going to be the beat drop, or the you know, the drop between the seasons. And then when we pick up, Pen is going to release an article. And she does it then because Colin would be distracted. And she has already made up in her mind that she's going to do this. So she breaks off the engagement or proposal or rejects him or whatever.
Or maybe because she rejects him, she thinks, like, I have nothing else but Lady Whistledown. I can't let Cressida claim credit for who I am and the only thing I have left. I didn't mention this during that segment, but I was also thinking the paper boys that were seen outside of the wedding, maybe they're releasing that issue where Lady Whistledown says, like, you know, Cressida is not Lady Whistledown. And maybe that's also what sparks the queen to launch, like, the manhunt, because she's just tired of being played with.
And then she slips up and writes something in Lady Whistledown, and Cressida realizes.
As she has done in the past.
Realizes.
Or Eloise drops it by accident.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Have you changed your mind on that now?
Yeah, we have said that before.
We have said that before, but I don't think that, you know, it's like hindsight's 2020, right? I feel like looking back on it, she might say like something quirky, and then Cressida like adds everything up.
Yeah, she doesn't drop the whole thing, but it's like a tiny clue.
It also could be something like, because I think it would be really clever if Cressida picked up that Pen slipped and reused a phrase in Lady Whistledown, but Eloise could still play into that where she's like, oh, Pen used to say this or something, like, or makes a quip that maybe Pen has made in the past, and Cressida connects that way.
Or even, to make it more like sort of sinister, Eloise could drop something about Cressida to Colin, and Colin could briefly mention it to Pen, not realizing at the time that Pen is Lady Whistledown. And then she writes that, and that's how Cressida puts it all together.
Yeah, maybe.
So lots of drama ahead, and we will continue where we think we're going to go with that in our next block. But again, we need a little respite from all this drama. So we should mention that throughout this whole block of filming, Nicola continued to brighten our days by sharing more of her infamous wig pics. Veg, how is our Pen looking in this beautiful array that I'm sure Beans will make into a beautiful collage?
So our lovely Pen, or I guess Nick, because she's not in Pen costume, is consistently favouring a darker, smoky eyeshadow with lots of fake eyelashes. So this is sort of like a ghost off the day's makeup, so we can kind of have a look. But yeah, the eyelashes have definitely been dislodged, especially in one picture. You can see them sort of hanging off. And Nick presented herself as a variety of characters, including a cherub, a puppy, and Lucius Malfoy, but all tied together by the dramatic eyeshadow as Pen is carried through the darker, more dramatic episodes in the season. So does this tell us that darker times are coming in this block? Maybe.
Possibly.
There's a storm coming. That was very Yorkshire. There's a storm coming.
There's a storm coming, Harry. We all best be ready when she does. Anyway, thank you, Nick, for those crumbs. As always, you keep us well fed.
And just to sweep up a couple more crumbs, so at the end of November, Martin Zamangbe was interviewed by Luxury London. He couldn't really say much about his character or anything about season 3, but he said he was very excited about what's in store for Will and his family in this season. We've talked before about how we love Will, and we're really hoping he has a big role, especially with Colin, and see what Alice gets up to. And he also mentioned how it's a very fun ensemble and how everyone worked really hard together. So it was an inspiring environment to be amongst.
We've talked before about Will's presence in the season, but I don't think we've talked much about Alice, and I wonder if
I was just thinking
they have such a great partnership that partnership in their marriage might kind of influence Colin if he becomes a friend with Will this season. He'll probably interact with Alice as well.
Oh, we hope so.
Well, I still believe it's going to be Cressida that is Eloise's friend. Mm-hmm. I think Alice would have been a great contender too, and we never thought about that.
Yeah. So
but he sounds like he's going to have an interesting role in the season one way or another.
Yeah.
So in early December, towards the end of the block, we had a little bit more filming. So no filming leaks, but we did know where they were up to. Beans.
Yeah.
Where were they?
Okay, so in early December, filming took place over at Gaddison Place, which we believe is a new location. We believe filming took place in the main entrance hall and staircase, and we'll share photos on social media, obviously. Mm-hmm. We don't really know what was being filmed or whose home location it was standing in for, so we would love to hear your theories personally.
Like I say, we don't know what they were up to, but we will share photos of the interior because it's quite interesting. But then, on the 1st of December, what else was going on, Lek?
On December 1st, Intimacy Coordinator Joshua Okpala shared a photo to his stories with the text, "Let's go coordinate some intimacy," which confirms that an intimate scene was either being prepped and or shot around that time. And sure enough, the next day...
Lucky. This was a historic day, if you remember, because Nicola shared to Instagram a photo of herself, Luke Newton, and their hair and makeup team celebrating Champagne Friday, complete with their new merchandise, those jumpers that I never managed to get my hands on. But the thing about this was Nicola still had her pen wig on, so this was just post-filming. The photo dropped. We were very excited to see them. But then Nicola, always knowing how to simultaneously make and ruin our lives, posted an Instagram story with tons of pizza saying, "We worked hard for this today." And you can see a little bit of the pen wig falling down. But the song that was playing, Lecky, what was it?
"I'll Be Your Mirror" by the Velvet Underground.
And we should say that the reflection was taken in a mirror. And so what did we all suspect? And what do we firmly now believe?
Mirror!
This was the filming of the mirror scene. My. Veg, how are they both looking?
So, Mira, Pen and Colin, as you said, were rocking some Champagne Friday hoodies. And more seriously, we also got a peek at Pen's wig in these photos. And we can see that she has very loose romantic waves, possibly the softest we've seen yet. This is peak in her hair journey, guys. And it makes us wonder if it's a sign that she's finally being her true self with Colin in the mirror scene. Oh,
we finally got there, guys.
You know, like she's letting her hair down. It's bedtime. And we've seen her waves and curls getting looser from series 1 and series 2 and into series 3 as she finally finds her footing and becomes the person she's meant to be. So it would really make sense to see loose curls like this in a moment where she and Colin are being maybe truly vulnerable with each other. And we talk a lot about the use of mirrors for Pen as well, showing her true self. So that just adds to it. And congrats to the Free the Net campaign, because we cannot see a cravat on Colin. Now, this might not be his costume, but it's always a good sign.
Well, I don't know what the costume will be for the mirror scene, my love.
He's making love with a cravat. Baby, I gotta keep my cravat on.
Oh, God.
I think we can... No, if anyone would, it's him. I think we can assume there is no cravat in this particular costume.
Yeah. And we will also be collecting donations for the poor Polin fans who are still comatose after realising that Colin has freckles on his face in this picture.
He does indeed.
So hope those guys have woken up.
Now, I remember the freckles shook us all, because that promises lots of close-ups, very vulnerable. We love it. So, guys, this is it, the mirror scene. Now, we knew this was coming, thanks to Nick, She had dropped those breadcrumbs many a times. We've since had it confirmed even more through the Cat Quinn to Dumb interviews. But we have it here that the mirror scene is taking place in block 3. So that's episode 5 or episode 6.
Yeah.
Again, because they film them out of order within the block. In my theory, I reckon if they're engaged by episode 6, then this is engaged Polin, and this could be their engagement night. Or do you think it's going to be a later moment between the two? And what do you think the scene is going to represent for them? We've talked a lot about their identity, their confidence, their seeing and accepting their true selves. Polin versus the world.
What if she is like, we're not getting engaged? And he's like, no, just stay here. I'll convince you otherwise.
Oh, we love a good stay moment.
I want you to
A little convincing. I feel like they are engaged, Polin, by
Yeah.
the time this scene rolls around, because I feel like that is when Pen would allow herself to be truly vulnerable with Colin.
Yeah.
And maybe give in this way.
I wonder if she'll have any sort of worries from the fact that Colin's last engagement was broken. Obviously, it wasn't his fault, but
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe she would be hesitant about anything until fully married.
Well, maybe by this point she's convinced of his love.
True, yes, true.
They did have heavy petting in the carriage by now, but I was just thinking
yeah.
it'd be so funny if she was like, oh, are we gonna go have cake now?
Yeah, where's the farm?
Yeah.
So I agree that this might be the moment where she finally accepts
Yes.
herself and his love, and this is the moment where they properly embrace that it's the two of us against everything from here on out, no matter what comes our way.
Yeah.
In episode 7 and 8. Do you think this is going to be the engagement night? Do you think they're going to wrap it all into one endeavour?
Maybe.
I'm not sure. I feel like it is definitely post-engagement.
Yeah.
I don't know which episode it is either.
I think there'll be a bit of a gap between Carriage and that to space it out. But that said, in series 1 we had the wedding night followed by sex montage pretty swiftly afterwards, didn't we? So maybe not.
It could be at the very end of episode 5, and then episode 6 is about them as an engaged couple before the blackmail plot drops, potentially. Or it could be an early episode 6 moment.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to spiral. If episode 5 in season 1 was The Duke and I, then I wonder if episode 6 is Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, and that we have the mirror scene in that episode, potentially.
That would romance
Because
them.
you would need some romancing.
That would do the job.
You would need some romancing.
That would tick that box, like.
Yep.
I think this scene will be the moment that Pen is able to finally accept their relationship as the strength that it is, and accept herself.
Yeah.
And it's a moment of them accepting Lady Whistledown, and whatever threat is hanging over them, they're going to go into this together from that point onwards.
Yeah.
And because we speculated before that we don't necessarily believe that the conflict is going to keep them apart like it has with previous couples.
Yeah.
And that it's going to be them two against something.
Yes, against the world, yeah.
Also, just a quick question. Logistically, where do you think the mirror scene would even happen? Do you think it's going to be Colin's bedroom? Pen's?
I think Colin's.
Hopefully, well,
Do you think that other side of Colin's, because we've only seen half of his room, right? Do you think the other side is just a massive mirror that we've never seen before? And we just pan around?
I feel like I'm fine either way, because I really would like Pen to see his yellow sheets, and I really want to see her sneaking into the Bridgerton house, but I also really want to see him like scaling a tree to get to like her bedroom or something. So I'm alright either way.
If they tie the mirror into the engagement, then it would make sense for it to be Colin's room, I think.
Unless like he leaves and like sneaks back in, or like she goes home with her family and then he sneaks into her house, something like that, because they don't want the night to end.
Yeah, maybe she says something that like suggests that she still has doubts about herself, or and maybe if it's their engagement and they have their engagement ball, and like someone says something, or there's whispers about like the two of them being together, because we think she might write about their engagement that's curious news, and that Lady Whistledown might be skeptical. If someone says something to her, or Cressida says something to her at the engagement that knocks her confidence, you know, why is he marrying her? And that instigates the mirror. And that self-acceptance moment that he guides her through. I think that would make sense to me. Well, the mirror is a coming. Well, pun not really intended, but we'll let it stay. Leaving our lovely mirror aside, later in December, Simone was photographed at the Holborn Museum getting ready for season 3 promo. So again, we know that more promo is being filmed, and she was also interviewed by the Associated Press, in which she talked about how season 3 had been really lovely because her and Jonathan Bailey were now supporting characters to a new love story, and she said they were both relieved they could have fun a little bit more and go off and do whatever things we had surrounding this and then come back. So we know that Jonathan Bailey, for example, was filming Wicked, and their role is still involved in the world, but maybe slightly pulled back and having an easy time of it meant that they could drop in and out of the filming as they needed to.
Yeah.
And then just some other little crumbs, a little festive crumb. We're still in, the post-Christmas mood here anyway. But in December and in November, the Polin elves were spotted on set. So on-set festivities are revolving around a couple of cameos from the elves that had Pen and Colin's faces stuck on them that were shared by Nicola. And I have to say a special shout out goes to the sign that was stuck up that was visible in one of the photos that Nicola shared. And the sign reads, "Please, no photography, no filming." And the please in that sentence sounds so exhausted. But as always, we're eternally grateful to Nicola for sharing photos from set, because no sign has ever stopped the co-captain of our ship from delivering us sacred crumbs.
Yep.
And then to wrap off this block, on the 17th of December, Luke Newton shared a photo of himself with the caption saying, "A celebratory cinnamon social, the festive break is upon us," confirming that Block 3 had finally come to a close and the cast and crew were on a very well-earned break for the holidays.
Gorgeous.
Man, I love cinnamon rolls. Oh my god. I want a cinnamon roll now.
Who doesn't love a cinnamon roll?
Yeah.
So, as we know, production had finally wrapped for the year and the cast and crew began their break. But 2022 was not done with the Polin fans just yet, as we made sure we ended the year in a state of chaos, because that's how we love to live. So, on New Year's Eve, we had a nice time because Luke Newton shared a photo of Lilac Colin with Eloise with the caption, "Happy New Year." So, looking forward to the fact that 2023 was going to be the year of Polin, 100% confirmed. Of course, it was going to be what could possibly stop it. I mean, tragic now you look back at it, but, if we thought that that was going to be the way we ended the new year, it absolutely would not be, because the 31st of December or New Year's Day, depending on where in the world you were. So this was either the last thing that happened to you in 2022 or the first thing that happened to you in 2023.
Christ.
A Daily Mail article was published. Lecky, what was going on in this Daily Mail article?
Okay, so the headline read, "Third season of Netflix hit Bridgerton is plunged into chaos. The show bosses acts very dark storyline after concerns were raised over a sex plotline. Sources working on the production of the Netflix does it say Bonkbuster?
I think so. That's I copied and pasted, babe.
Okay. I'll paraphrase the rest of the article here, but they say sources working on the production of the show say that some of the scripts have had to be rewritten by Shonda Rhimes, who wanted to give viewers more joy. It is understood that there were concerns over a sex plotline.
Do you remember this hitting?
Oh my god.
Yeah, it was New Year's Eve. We were all chatting. Obs was so depressed she almost quit she almost left the fandom entirely, if I recall, over this piece of news.
If only, if only.
And I didn't believe it for a second again. I did not believe that this was a thing, because mostly I don't believe the Daily Mail.
Well, I mean, I remember at the time, everyone immediately, the gut instinct reaction was like, what the fuck has Colin done? Because we were like, it must be to do with the Polin storyline. The immediate reaction.
Yeah.
Everyone was like, oh my god, what the hell was going on with that mirror?
And part of the reason why I was so skeptical was because they've received a lot of backlash from season 1.
Mm-hmm.
And
what could be that dark
yes,
to that extent?
Right.
Yeah.
And then I believe it was eventually proven to be inaccurate.
It was refuted a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Metro.co.uk later published an article saying that they understood the report was untrue.
Yeah.
They reached out to production.
Mm-hmm. I think Hello Magazine as well confirmed it.
I know. Well, so then Dubois actually spoke to people in Shondaland that were on production, and
they laughed.
Yeah, they laughed. Yeah, they were like, yeah, that's not happening.
It's not even slightly.
Right, yeah. They didn't give anything away, but they're like, yeah, no, that's not what's going on. So
I remember during this time, a bunch of people were trying to figure out how this dark sex plot could relate to Polin. And one of our friends on the sub said she doubted that the Friends to Lovers storyline was going to be serving, quote, 50 Shades of Yellow. So we had a lot of fun with this.
Sadly, it was not meant to be.
yeah.
Will we ever find out about the dark sex plotting? I mean, maybe it was just a problem with the on-set lighting. Who knows? But Beans, I think the way they were substantiating it was saying that the season had been delayed because of it. Mm-hmm. And we do know there were delays in the season in filming. Yeah. But we think that was more to do with costuming and the need for promo and things like that kind of threw the timeline off.
Yeah. So in general, and I've mentioned this before, based off of their holiday break and stuff like that, their shooting schedule actually wasn't really that many weeks off of any previous season's shooting schedule. It just seemed a little bit longer because they did have longer break periods.
Yeah.
It was delayed at the beginning due to I think it was mostly costuming, and then that was it. But yeah, so we think it was mainly to do with that.
So goodbye to the Dark Sets plotline.
Yeah.
You brought us chaos. We don't miss you, but we thank you for your service nonetheless.
I made a lot of memes from this, to be honest, so I was fine.
We did make a lot of memes. You know, it really characterized a lot of 2023, I think.
Yeah. And the other thing is, like, if you've listened to this podcast and you have not understood where the dark sex plot came from, and this is where it came from.
This is where it came
because
from.
I know that we have referenced it a few times within our podcast itself, because it's just, you know, now it's just something very silly. Yeah.
Hilarious.
And it's worth saying that if this ever was real, which we heavily, heavily, heavily don't suspect it was, if this ever was real in any capacity, we highly doubt it was ever to do with Penn and Colin. And if anything, it was maybe to do with Ben and Lady Tilly.
Violet.
Yeah.
Or Violet. But again, we don't really think it was real. That it joins the halls as one of our beloved memories. And I think what a perfect way to end block 3 on that note, eh? We could have ended it on the mirror. We took it a bit darker than that. Any last thoughts on the block before we're done?
I think this is when we truly started delving into Chaos Brain for sure.
This was like a messy block.
Yeah, we were really excited at the beginning, and we were excited to get all of the crumbs out. And then we just went into like full, just like, what do these windows mean? You know, like, it's just, that's kind of where we were.
What could this floor mean?
And I think it was also like we were slowly coming to the realization that this wasn't going to be coming out in like February or March or May even. You know, like this is not coming out
in the coming weeks.
ever. So
one day.
because I was fully on the train of like it's either going to be between like April and August, and I was fully on the like it's going to be later in the year of 2023, and even I was feeling...
It will be between April and August. You're not wrong. It was just the year wasn't quite accurate.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So, Veg and Beans, thank you for your service. Lecky, don't you go anywhere. Keep your clown nose and dusting brush in hand, because you and I are off into the lab to figure out what the hell any of this means for our post-excavation report. So, Lek, here we are again, eh?
Yep.
Back in the lab. Are you ready to piece these all together and come up with our version of episode 5 and episode 6? I have to say, this is getting more and more tenuous with every passing week.
At this point, we have to invent some things because we know that some important plot points probably occur in this episode, such as maybe an engagement. And we don't have many crumbs suggesting how that will happen, but we will give you our perspective. A take that's probably wrong.
Please take this with all the salt you can find in all the mines in America.
Yeah.
Okay, episode 5, our little fantasy version. Rejecting Mr. Bridgerton. Sorry, Colin. Let me set the scene for you. It's June 2024. We're switching Netflix back on after a month of theorising, agonising, spiralling. We've spent 4 weeks screaming into the abyss/Reddit as we've tried to survive the part 1 purgatory.
And I've hopefully had some time to do some editing.
I am just waiting for your edits to come around. But we've made it through. We're pressing play, knowing that the next 4 hours will change our lives irrevocably. First on our screens, we're plunged straight into episode 5 and into the fallout of the carriage scene. If you remember from our last Crumbs episode, at the end of our episode 4 delusion/prediction, we said that Penn would reject Colin's proposal, hop out the carriage and flee into the night, aka just run into our house. Well, episode 5 picks up as both Penn and Colin try to deal with what went down between them in the carriage, both literally and figuratively. Colin is navigating his big feelings as he grapples with finding out that A, Penn is Lady Whistledown, B, he is in fact not a gentleman, and C, his best friend is actually the love of his life and does not, as it turns out, want to marry him. Yep, Colin, my wife Bridgerton, has fully emerged, tragically coinciding with the arrival of Penelope, not your wife, Featherington. Times are looking bleak for Polin. But not to fear, because this is an ensemble show, Lecky, so it's not all doom and gloom. Just mostly. But as Colin hopefully cries into his yellow bedding, I want actual sobbing this time, Colin. I don't like to see him suffer, unlike some people on this podcast. But I'm just saying, it looks really beautiful when he cries, and I want tears, you know? It's just for the cinematography, that's all I'm interested in. But whilst he's busy doing that in his bedroom, the Bridgertons are busy celebrating and preparing for the upcoming nuptials of Francesca and John. Grab your prawn cocktails, like the Fran wedding is on. Love is in the air for select couples only, but prawn cocktails are had by all. And as both Colin's blood pressure and blood alcohol level continues to rise throughout the episode, also spiraling out of control is the Queen's search for Lady Whistledown. Maybe Cressida has announced that she is Lady Whistledown, and Penn, who now thinks Lady Whistledown is all she has left upon rejecting Colin, refutes Cressida's claim, are you following me, Lek?
Yeah.
In her scandal sheet. But no matter how it happens, no matter what the fallout is, the Queen is so frustrated by all the toing and froing over who is or isn't Whistledown. So she ups her search for the writer, getting her footmen to distribute flyers all around the ton with details of the bounty. This is actually rooted in a crumb. I think this is the first. This is the first appearance of a crumb.
Yeah, we have photos to potentially back this up and some video.
But lucky, worry not, because this is a thorough manhunt. And so the palace footmen are handing out flyers, and they're even stopping passing carriages to do so. Like I say, they're very thorough. And who gets stopped in his carriage but none other than our leading man himself, Colin. Because if anything is going to reduce your stress levels over the love of your life being London's most notorious gossip writer, it's finding out the Queen of England is out for blood of the said most notorious gossip writer. Especially after she's rejected your proposal and thus your protection. Life comes at you fast, eh, Colin?
I was rewatching that video, and I'm not sure he does hand a flyer inside the carriage, but I don't know why.
You know what, Lek? I was thinking this because I don't think he has a flyer in his hand. Maybe this isn't the moment to discuss it, but we're in it now. We're in the lab.
Yeah.
We're pulling the pieces out.
Yeah.
Get it under the microscope.
Yeah.
Because it's really the only thing that makes contextual sense for them to be like handing something out.
Yeah.
But I don't see a flyer in his hand.
I mean, I watched this back a bunch of times and I didn't see it happen, but I can't imagine why else they would stop the carriage.
Yeah.
Maybe he opens it up and Colin already has one, so he doesn't like whip one out of his pocket for him.
He's like, I've got my reading.
Yeah. he's already studiously reading it, very upset. Who knows?
Unless they are searching for her. But surely...
Seems too early.
Look, we never said that these were perfect synopses.
Yeah. Just go with it. Go with what we said earlier in the episode. Maybe they're handing out flyers. Yeah.
And this is our version. They're handing out flyers.
We know that footmen are handing out flyers because we've memed it before.
You have memed it, we've seen it,
Yeah.
we've lived it. So we're going to go with that. Forget the doubt. Let's see how our boy's doing, seeing as though we're on the topic of him.
Okay.
Maybe at this point, Colin tries again to persuade Penn to marry him, but sadly doesn't make it entirely clear that he wants to marry her out of love. Instead, it rather unfortunately sounds as though it's Colin's hero complex and honour making the proposal to Penelope, so she nopes her way out of it yet again. Pray for Anthony's most expensive brandy Lek, because if we've learned anything from spending our days on AO3, it's that this is the point in the story where Anthony's drinks cabinet gets raided. But back to happier times. And we're all padding in to one of the many, many carriages we've seen. And we're going to head off to the Old Royal Naval Chapel for the wedding of the season, or at least one of them. It's time for two to become one as Fran and John become...
Become
from...
They're French prawns. He's not Scottish, he's French. So
Become
become prawn.
Oh, it's time for two to become one as Fran and John become Fran.
Prawn.
Everyone raise a prawn to the happy couple. I mean, he might be sad at this point, but at least there's food.
Right.
Right,
Yeah.
so Colin will be happy.
Yeah.
Who doesn't like seafood?
Eat your feelings, Colin.
Now, with the whole of the ton piled into the church, cue many awkward encounters among the Bridgerton characters, but Fran finally makes it down the aisle and marries love of her life, number one.
Ooh.
Sorry, John. As the two of them say their vows, Penn and Colin, both renowned lovers of a good old-fashioned wedding, we've seen it time and time again, cannot help but look at one another, realising that they should be the ones getting married. Lecky, if this is my fantasy, then I'm having this moment and you know it. It's beautiful, it's heartbreaking, it's hopeful, it's the cause of death for Polin fans all across the world. But maybe it also triggers some life-changing realisations. Thanks, Fran, for your service. And finally, towards the end of the episode now, buckle in, because Polin have a proper chat and realise, what a surprise, they do actually want to marry each other for the right reasons after all. Who would have thought it, eh?
Yep.
We end episode 5 in floods of tears as our Polin finally get engaged.
You may have noticed we left something out. We just kind of glossed over something there. So now the big question is, how does Colin go about convincing Penn to marry him after all if she earlier rejected him? So here are our thoughts. We think Colin's second proposal and declaration of love needs to be a callback to the assuredly, fervently, loudly scene in season 1. Colin needs to voice his love for Penn to convince her to agree to marry him. But if he's voicing his feelings loudly, does it need to be in a large crowd? Not necessarily. So here's my theory.
Go.
Colin goes over to Penn's house the night after the wedding and shouts up at her window. Maybe he throws rocks at her window or calls her name to get her attention. Who knows? But she opens the window and Colin says that he needs to speak with her. Penn tries to quiet him, concerned someone will hear him. And in the most rom-commiest scene of all time, Colin responds by saying, "Someone once told me that when one finds oneself in love, they must declare it assuredly, fervently, loudly," and so so on. Bonus points if he somehow finds his way up to her room at some point during the scene, maybe scaling the side of the Featherington house. Now, we have no proof to support this idea, but consider this. If we want the scene from the book where Portia is surprised to learn of Polin's engagement, Colin cannot confess his love in public. By having him shout up at her window in the dead of night, we get a technically public but intimate proposal, and Colin still gets to declare his feelings assuredly, fervently, and loudly, because hopefully Portia is a heavy sleeper.
Lucky, I love it. I'm on board. I think you've cracked it. So, episode 5, beautiful, completely made up, but stunning nonetheless.
Yeah.
What have you got in store for us for episode 6?
Thoroughly romancing Mr. Bridgerton. Episode 6. After a rather stressful episode 5, episode 6 kicks off on a lighter note as Colin and Pen reveal their engagement to their respective families. Book fans, this is your moment to shine as the chaotic Featherington engagement scene kicks off, sadly sans Felicity. Once Violet and Portia have regained consciousness from the shock of having to both plan a second wedding, we assume Prudence are married by now, but who knows. The two throw themselves into wedding planning. Imagine many hilarious scenes as Portia ecstatically realizes she'll be related to the Bridgerton family, and as Anthony and Violet come to the horrifying realization that the Bridgertons will also be related to the Featherington family. Meanwhile, Lady Whistledown publishes a new issue sharing the most curious of news. Penelope Featherington is to marry Colin Bridgerton. Colin is none too thrilled about Pen's disparaging remarks about herself and their engagement, and the threat of the Queen's bounty is still looming over them. But for now, the two are trying to enjoy the fact that they are finally going to be together. An engagement ball is thrown for Pen and Colin, or maybe they just attend a ball at this point, so we can get a beautiful scene of the two happily dancing together again. Please and thank you.
Amen.
We haven't yet decided what happens at this post-engagement ball. In the books, this is the moment they are interrupted by an impromptu Lady Whistledown delivery that infuriates Colin. Could this happen in the show? Perhaps. I personally think this will happen earlier in episode 5, as we touched on. So perhaps instead someone says something to Pen that knocks her confidence in some way. Cressida seems a good candidate for this, and this would be a good way to tease the future Cressida drama to come. Maybe, although Cressida makes a remark about Pen, she is so outwardly confident that she firmly puts Cressida in her place, not needing Colin to rescue her, and this subsequently enrages Cressida and kind of ratchets up the tension between them. After the ball, and in an attempt to alleviate Pen's self-doubt, Colin sneaks Pen into his very yellow bedroom. The camera pans around to show us a hitherto unseen but gigantic mirror on the other side of Colin's room, and Polin fans collectively scream and swoon and regret ever agreeing to watch this alongside their families. Yep, it's time for the mirror scene. It only took 200 years, but Book Colin finally gets his wish granted as Pen and Colin hook up in front of a mirror before sleeping together for the first time. Bonus points if we get a shot of Pen standing in front of a mirror and then see Colin step up behind her as we realize that mirror shenanigans are finally going down.
Stay, indeed.
Now, after sneaking a thoroughly disheveled Penelope back into the Featherington house, we see Colin, thoroughly not a gentleman Bridgerton, realize that actually, now that he thinks about it, a long engagement isn't that romantic after all. If only there was something he could do about that. Fortunately for Colin, that night the Featheringtons host the Bridgertons for the almost annual Colin Gets Engaged to a Featherington celebratory dinner. I didn't write that sentence.
Sorry, Colin.
Prudence sings, potatoes are served, Mrs. Varley gets her time to shine, and Colin naturally decides that this is the perfect moment to ask the mamas if they can move the wedding forward by a few weeks, cheerfully revealing to both families that Pen has been as compromised by Colin as an unattended plate of biscuits in the Bridgerton drawing room. But then, who turns up at the Featherington residence but Cressida Cowper? Now, I think Ovs believes Cressida may pay the family a visit during the aforementioned engagement dinner, but I think it may happen afterward, either later that night or the following morning. Cressida shows up and requests a private chat with Pen. Cressida insists she is there to pass on her congratulations to Pen, but Pen, having not been born yesterday, realizes something is afoot. In the Featherington drawing room, Cressida reveals that she knows Pen is Lady Whistledown and that Pen is going to have to pay a hefty price to stop Cressida from revealing her identity to the Queen. We don't yet know what payment methods Cressida is accepting, whether it will be cash, Amex, or some other kind of blackmail currency. Who knows? But if it's anything besides potatoes, we'll watch the blood drain from Pen's face as she realizes shit has hit the fan.
And is that the end of our episode 6?
Yes. Yeah, that's it.
Incredible that we have pieced that little narrative out of
thin air.
Thank you, Lucky. Let us know how you feel about our little delusion listeners. We'd love to hear your thoughts. But before we head back to the others, Queen Beans, I know you're around here somewhere. It was a blurry old block for Carriages and Footmen, but how many blurry sightings of our beloved Pen and Colin did we have to squint at this week?
Members of the Ton, we have blurs.
So we were a little thin on the ground with Pen and Colin sightings, but fear not, because next week we'll have them all for you. Lek, shall we head out of the lab and go grab the others to finish the episode?
Yep.
Let's go. So next episode, we'll finally be reaching the end of our season 3 production episodes as we break down block 4 of production. And oh my, what a block. We're going to have This Morning leaks, the filming in Bath, a possible Polin wedding, pixelated photos of a married Polin, a grumpy John Sterling, a happy John Sterling. There is going to be tons to cover, so we look forward to catching you there. But until then, aside from any emergency episodes, where can everyone find us?
You can find us at What a Barb Pod on Instagram and TikTok.
And you can find all our episodes with subtitles and Beans' lovely collages over on youtube.com/whatabarbpod.
And my darling, darling Beans, can you do us the honour and see us out?
Das violin.
A Polin podcast.